Welcome to today's KETIV's Autodesk Virtual Academy. I'm Nigel Mbayak, application engineer and your host for today and every day. Right here next to me, I've got Adam Evangelista, one of our application engineers on our customer success / Lifeline team. So I'm sure that if you've called for support questions, Adam's one of those, awesome people who do answer your questions in a timely manner. Our motto here is, we want to be able to share our knowledge with all of you, which is why we put these on every week. The hundreds of people who watch these every week, definitely thank you all for being a part of our community. So with that, we're going to get into Inventor design view representations today, but view reps really give you this power, and it's, not too difficult to learn. We want to be able to show everybody some of these fundamental features in Inventor. Adam's going to get a little bit into it as we pass the mic over to him. But if you do have any questions at any time, definitely type those into the GoToWebinar chat panel. Or if you're on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and just leave a comment, and we'll make sure we get back to you as soon as possible, or even during the Q&A session during the webinar itself. So with that, Adam, thanks for being here today, and let's get started.
All right, thanks for having me today, Nigel, KETIV, all these beautiful, lovely participants in our audience. Again, my name's Adam Evangelista. We're going to be talking about Inventor design representations, okay? Just a quick outline of what we're going to be going over today. We have a brief introduction, which we're going through right now. We're going to have a brief overview of the different types of view representations and what they're used for and why we're going to be talking about them. And we're going to be splicing in some live demonstrations during that as well. We're going to wrap it up with a nice little summary and a Q&A, just to put a nice little bow on it, and then we will be off to the races once again, okay? So one more time, Adam Evangelista. My name's I'm an application engineer here for KETIV Technologies. It's been a good year so far for me here, but before this, I was also a student, a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering from UC Irvine, right? Zot to all the anteaters in the crowd, right? Back then, I also worked on some large assemblies, like some of the race car projects and the robotic hand project, and some of that information is going to be informing our discussion today, how to work with these large assemblies and stuff. Other fun fact, I'm from Lemoore, California. If anyone's from the Central Valley, I like to think I've come a long way, but deep down, I still know I'm a small town boy with a pocket full of dreams. That is, a pocket full of dreams and design representations, which is the main topic that we're going to be covering today. And so at the very most basic, representations are essentially just different persistent ways to view your model. Okay, and overall, there's three different types that Autodesk includes into your basic assemblies and stuff. We have the view representations, the position representations, and the levels of details. And ultimately, the whole intention of these representations are to save you time and to be able to better communicate your ideas when going to your DWGs and stuff. So that said, we're going to talk about the first one. Let's start dissecting these guys a little bit. The view representations are first up, okay? As the name suggests, the view representations represent the control over different model visibility, okay?
So you want to say that they, represent your view?
They do represent your view.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So a bit on the nose, isn't it? But the view reps, I did say they represent the model visibility, but they have control over a bunch of different features, right? So the component visibility itself, right? So whether it's turned on or off, there's the enabled states, there's the appearance overrides if you want to get involved with the different material appearances, the actual view angles, if you don't want to rely on the view cube itself. The parts list filters is also really interesting, which we'll cover. And if we have time today, we could probably talk about saving section views, for example. I love a good section view as much as the next guy, and also the model browser is also saved with these different views. And pasted into the right over here, you kind of see an example of different view states that we could save with these view reps. So this is just some sample, but you could have like a closed chassis if you have some kind of enclosure, a closed view, an open view. You could have one with red and blue or green or red fish, whatever, or you could just have a single component showing like in that front plane only. That said, let's jump right into it. Let's Alt-Tab over to Inventor. There it is. Okay. Let's Alt-Tab over into Inventor. I'm going to go and start with the personal computer assembly sample from the Inventor 2018 samples over here. Okay, those are pretty good build over here. You know, we could just go. We could, you know, we just jump in. We have a work day to start. We look in here. There's a nice little MOBO in there. It's a nice, nice graphics card, maybe a GTX 1080 or something. I'm sure. That said, we got to get to work though. So I'm going to go ahead and reset back to the home view. We're going to look over to the left over here. This is our whole assembly browser over here. We're really interested in the representations folder over here. So you can click to expand that over there. And we see our three lovely friends here, the view representations, the position, and the levels of detail. And let's go ahead and expand the view reps over here right now. And you'll notice by default there's already a master there. It's master, it's activated, and it's locked, right? The master view you don't really want to fiddle with too much, so you can't unlock it, can't make any real changes to it, and you can't delete it either. So you right click, the lock is grayed out, that's intentional. So if you actually want to start using these view reps, what we got to do, got to go to the top level, right click on the top level right here, and go to new, okay? So now that you see the blue checkbox actually moves down here to view, and there's no lock, which we'll talk about in a bit. But again, I'm a busy guy, so I gotta you know, work on my gaming PC, and you know, let's say I'm really interested in these hard drive header pins over here. Some really nice ribbon work if you're into that sort of thing. I like it. You know, I want to be able to adjust the stuff and look at it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to my view over here. I'm going to go ahead and lock this view. So once again, I'm going to go and right click on this view, and you'll see that lock is available to choose this time since we're not on master. You go ahead and click lock. And so what this is going to do essentially, this is going to be a save state for this view essentially. So if I go ahead, if I zoom out, if I twirl it around a little bit, move it over here, you know, I want to look at the I/O for a little bit, you know, like there's no HDMI on here, what the heck? But let's say I need to go back, this is the day after now, and I need to go back to my header pins. I can go back up here, double click, snaps me right back over there, right? It's fantastic, right? Normally what would happen, right, you would be over here, you would maybe be working another part of the machine, and you're kind of disoriented, you're like, okay, well, I need to get back to my view that I was working on originally. If you're anything like me, you're really reliant on the home view button. So you actually reorient yourself, going back to the home view button, being really careful with your shift clicks over here, and you have to get back right in there. Okay, and you're back, right? But that took a few seconds already, and you could imagine assemblies getting larger and more complex, and you really want an easier way to be able to get back to this workable working view here. And that's what view reps are for here, right? I'm going to go to rename this header pins here. So let's say hard drive pins, just so I remember in the future. So now, again, once again, if I ever, you know, kind of go around, if I want to work on a different part and I want to snap back to a particular part of the assembly to work on again, I can go ahead, go back to my hard drive pins right here, and I'll automatically be back there without any of that fiddling or home view or shift clicking, whatever. It's right there to go.
Yep, and that was just a double click, right? Just
a double click, correct. So you can double click to activate the different levels of the view tree here. I'll talk about how master works specifically, but let's say we're going to go back to the home view. We're going to talk about some other features we could use here, right? You may have noticed this beautiful case on the outside, a beautiful paper bag brown. And I don't know about you guys, I'm not a big fan of that, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually make a copy. I'm going to go ahead and start a new view right here. And you'll see the new view actually defaults to a copy of the previous activated one, which was my hard drive pin specifically. So I have to reorient myself again, go back to home, get this other view cube angle right here. I'm going to go ahead and save this view as, let's see, I'm going to name it as paper bag brown. Okay, there we go, paper bag brown. I'm going to go ahead and lock this so that the material appearances are going to be locked in. But what I want to do, I want to make a new copy of this from here. So again, you could either just make the copy from up here by pressing new, or you could just copy the previous one right away. Okay, so for this one specifically, I'm going to go ahead and choose the different parts of the chassis that I want to change the colors for. Okay, so the front plate right here, I'm going to hold shift, select my chassis that I'm interested in over here, and I'm going to go up to my appearance browser over here, and I'm going to go ahead and select new color. I'm going to choose pink, beautiful Pepto-Bismol pink right there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so you see I already made a mistake here. My blue checkbox over here is actually on the paper bag brown color. So if I click back there, it didn't save my changes, but it's going to default back to that locked state, which was the brown chassis. So I actually need to activate my second view rep down here. I'm going to go through the same process again, change it over to pink, and now I want to lock it in. Perfect.
You can mess with stuff in the edited states or the edited view representations, but they won't save once you leave that view representation. So he changed it in a locked state from brown to pink, but the second he clicked on another view or he reset the view, it defaulted back to brown because that's the save state that actual view was in. So note that you can make certain changes when you've got a locked view, but they do not save down.
So I'm going to make one more color just because it's a nice little workflow. This is going to be a really common workflow for all of these representations, essentially. You can just right-click, copy it down, activate the one that you need to, and then make your changes appropriately. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to a nice little blue now. Let's see. Yeah, sky blue medium, classic, right? I'll go ahead and lock this down as well. And let's go ahead and rename this.
And if anyone's confused as to why he's locking these views in the first place, sometimes you want to default back to some certain state that you had, but you want to try a couple of things, maybe in testing, maybe you want to edit things like color is. Locking those views locks that particular state in that particular moment in time. So sometimes you want to default back to that, which is the case in which you would lock it. There's definitely cases where you want to lock them. There's certain cases where you also don't want to lock them. So if you're making a lot of edits and you want to make those happen all of the time, then leave it unlocked. But once you're done, with your assembly, your whole setup, you've got your view as you want it, and then you want to get to that point where you're going to port over to that IDW file or that DWG file for those who create DWGs in Inventor, go ahead and lock it, especially if you don't want to change it in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. So you can kind of think of these locked states as kind of fallbacks. If you ever, once you do make changes, you have different states to fall back on, right? Specifically for these colorings over here, right? You'll notice that I only had to, I don't have to continually make these appearance changes each time I want to see a different color for this, right? So if I wanted to talk to my colleague and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this computer case? Do you like the brown or the pink? I don't have to sit here and fiddle with the appearance bar and make sure that I select all the right parts, get the right angle, the right viewing angle again, choose the right materials. I have just a few double clicks right over here to show them automatically pink, blue, paper bag, brown, and this is again all from the same exact file. So I don't have to make multiple files, I don't have to do multiple clicks, and these are persistent for the future.
Exactly, and these color changes are pretty simple, right? He's only changing like 2 or 3 components in terms of color, but imagine you're changing like 15 or 20. Those aren't things you want to be doing over and over again, which is why these view reps are created, right? Yeah. So just one thing to note.
Yeah, no, fantastic stuff. And so I know what you're thinking. You're like, Adam, I don't like brown, I don't like pink, I don't like blue either. And I'm like, I don't like cases at all. So we could do that too. We could do a caseless build right now. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and copy this one down one more time. I'm going to go ahead and activate this. And I want to get rid of this chassis over here, right? I mean, there's probably some stuff. The mobile looks good from this side, but I want to kind of get rid of all the stuff around it just to make it a bit easier, right? So I'm going to reset it home, go back over here. I'm going to select my outer chassis parts right here. Again, I'm just shift clicking through here, PC chassis, case top, and then stylish front face 1. And I'm going to go ahead and right click, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off visibility here. Okay. So again, remember view reps are responsible for how your model looks essentially, and it could save visibility states in your drawing. It's like right over here now, I have a nice view here. Looking pretty good. I have a nice, easy to look at view of all the guts over here, right? So let's go ahead. I'm going to rename this guy. So I'm going to just call this guts right here. And so yeah, this looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and lock this down as well. So this will be a nice persistent state as well moving forward. And you can see you could have a lot more access. I could look up here, up and around, looking all right, and I could jump back just to get that nice view again, okay? So something we were teasing earlier, right, is kind of the workflow to the IDWs specifically, and so we're gonna see how a lot of these view reps kind of come into the IDWs. Again, really simple clicks on the model side lets us communicate a lot more information a lot quicker into the IDWs. Okay?
Exactly, and so there was a question that came in real quick that I think I can answer at this point in time. good friend Radu up from Benson. Hello, how Radu? How's it going? Asked the question, you know, when he opens a file or maybe he starts a file, he's got master and default as views. So there's a view rep called master, a view rep called default. How is the default one created and why is it created? So automatically when you create a new assembly file, and I think even part files now in Inventor, it creates two view representations. It's that master view, which is everything and it's locked, and then you've got your default view. So it creates both of those just as standard on your part files or your assembly files. And it automatically activates the default view once you create a new one. So if you guys are wondering, why do I have this one called default in addition to the one called master? It's automatically generated when you start an Inventor file, and that's why that's there. So hopefully that answered that question for those of you who were asking. So Adam, feel free to take it from there.
Good info, all right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start bringing some of these new drawing views into a drawing. So I have a drawing open already, thankfully, because we're good presenters. And we're going to go ahead and just place in a base view, right? So you might get this error right here. And what the problem is here is that I haven't actually saved my file from making all of these guys, all these new view reps, right? So I'm going to go ahead and file, save as, so I don't muck up my original sample. And I'm going to call this AVA_5 because I've been through this process a few times. Computer assembly, go ahead and save that.
Yeah. And Adam, just real quick, I know the answer to this question.
Oh, yeah.
Where did you get this file? Does it exist?
Where did I get this file? Yeah, so all these files that I'm working with today are available online at the Autodesk Knowledge Network. Just looking up the Inventor 2018 sample files. Do you want to post it? Should I look it up right now?
Yeah, no, I'll grab it. I'll grab it
Yep.
in the background. So if I'll grab those and I'll post them. So if you want to do kind of the same thing that Adam's doing with these files, maybe watch this video over again on our YouTube channel, you can. And we'll make sure you get those files to you if need be. So.
Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, I have a drawing open right now. I saved my previous one. It's now saved AVA5 personal computer. I'm going to drop in a base view. It's going to load in a bit. You can notice that there's no error this time around. It's good stuff. Yeah, so you'll notice when you bring in a design view, right, you get this drawing view dialog box, right? And some of these words are starting to sound pretty familiar, right? Representation. There's a whole section dedicated to the representation, design representations, okay? There's a view, there's position, there's levels of detail. I'm really curious about the views right now, though. So you could, in the pull-down menu right here, you could select different views that we've already established, right? So, like, let's say I want a paper bag brown one more time. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get a nice angle on this one more time. Looks pretty good. And so this is the paper brown one. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to copy this particular view a few times. So I'm just using Control C and Control V right now, and I just made 2 more copies, okay? And so what I'm going to do from here, right, I'm going to go ahead and double click to open, edit this dialog box one more time. I'm going to change the view from paper bag brown over to blue, right? And you'll see it doesn't update in the preview right here, but once you press OK, it will render out the color. Once again, I could do the same exact thing with pink as well. Very nice. Okay, very nice. And so right off the bat, again, you have this kind of nice, you have 3 different color representations available in the drawing right off the bat because you prepared your view reps properly, and it looks really nice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, and the other thing we teased too was kind of a parts list filter, which we'll talk about right now as well. I'm going to bring down 2 of these base views. So I'm going to use one that's using the guts view. I'm going to make this a bit bigger because I think 1/4 is a bit small. Yeah, so this is going to be one base view with the guts specifically. And then I'm also going to bring in a second one that's with the master view that has the whole case and everything. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. And so as typical, right, you could generate a parts list using these design views over here. So if I go ahead and click on this guy, I could go over to annotates and then parts list over here. That's already selected since I selected this drawing view already, and I can press OK. I'm going to press OK again, and I have it right here, right? It looks pretty standard, right? 1 through 16, very nice. And I'm going to go ahead and generate the second parts list as well. Parts list 2, okay, right here. And you'll notice these are exactly the same right now. So that's not really what you promised, Adam. What are you talking about? That's not what we want. So these are exactly the same right now, right? They both have all 16 items, and specifically the main difference between these two views are the case items specifically. And so what we could do, we could actually apply a filter to these parts lists. So I double click to open up this editor over here. And I'm really interested in this filter settings button at the top here. So third from the left, this is the filter settings button. And so these filter settings allows you to filter your parts list by different means, of course. And so the particular criteria we're interested in is the assembly view representation. Oh, wow, look at that. And as is the story so far, we could select from all of our different view reps that we set up so far, okay? And so I'm going to choose guts because this is the guts one specifically. And I want you guys to notice specifically how this parts list updates after I click OK here, okay? It's going to shrink down. It just weeded, it filtered out the case parts that I didn't have included and shown visible on my view rep there, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and apply this. Again, my one there updates as well. And so you can see now we have two different parts lists for two different view reps and three different color views right here, all because we were using the view reps smartly here, right? So again, that's a lot of information, and it lets us communicate really easily and really quickly to our colleagues right off the bat, right? So some really good stuff there. So that's view reps in a nutshell. We're going to go ahead and Alt Tab back to my presentation, which is right over here, right? And so, yeah, one more time. So again, view reps, model visibility for the most part. We showed how you could use you could control component visibility to generate new parts lists and filter them, the enable appearance overrides for the different colors and stuff like that. The same sort of stuff applies to section views and even the model browser itself. So you could produce different states where it's sectioned, where you have the model browser fully extended, whatever you want. It's all good stuff, all meant for you to, again, save time and communicate better with your colleagues, okay? Next thing we're going to talk about is positional reps, okay? Again, very similar story to view reps. We're not necessarily concerned with the visuals of the model anymore, but we are concerned about the physical configurations of the model now. So the sample that I have here in the picture, we'll get into in a little bit, is a little RC suspension system right here. So you can see the suspension could have different positions essentially, right? One where the springs are compressed, one where they're extended. But ultimately, these different positional reps, instead of controlling the visuals, they do control the positions. And
who would have guessed?
I know, it's so straightforward.
It's like it's too easy.
Yeah, and so specifically, these guys provide controls and overrides for the constraint values and the grounding status and the positional offsets. So let's jump into that as well. Okay, so we're going to leave our personal computer, and I actually have this is another model. This is the suspension fork sample from the same project file. I've actually worked on this one a little bit already, just in the favor of time. And so I'm going to go over to the view representations right away. I have a few different view representations already, right? So you can imagine having your own custom one, but I just have view one right here. We also have the positional reps down here. I have a few of them already parsed out right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and click through these, and I want to demonstrate what happens exactly. So I have the master view, which looks like this. And I also have full stroke. Double click on that, and the parts expand, right? Very nice. And then if I go to the compression stroke, shoots back up again, compresses the shocks. Okay, and then the last one right here, it's a bit different, but we'll show it right now. This is an adjustable view rep here, right? So I could actually move this around as I want in the adjustable positional representation, okay? That's really good stuff. So what's really happening over here exactly, right? So I'm really curious about these guys here, okay? So I'm gonna open up this little model browser over here, and what we're really interested in is this constraint value right here. If you see these red circles over here, this is the constraint that we're concerned with. By default, in the master representation, that constraint is set to 2.5 inches, right? So if I try to move the model, it's not going to move. It's not going to do anything.
You've blocked all degrees of freedom.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's good to go. It's constrained as you would expect it to be. But I want you guys to keep an eye on what happens to the stroke value when I go to full stroke right here, right? It expands, right? It expands again, and then the stroke constraint changes from 2.5, and it's actually overridden to actually 5 inches here, right? Like I said, these positional reps are overrides for the constraints, and so it gets to show you a different position like that. Okay, one more time for the compression stroke right here. Compression stroke, you'll notice that the stroke is overridden to 0 now, naturally. And under adjustable, we don't see any numbers at all. We actually just see suppress. And so that basically just, it's like an actual suppression where, you know, it's not even applicable and you can move it freely as you need to, okay? And so again, this is without changing the base view right here. You still have the basic one with the original constraint that you intended at 2.5, but now you have these different branches of the same file with different functionalities and views and positions, okay? That said, let's go ahead and just work through a quick workflow of this, right? Very similar to the view reps, right? I'm at the top level. I want to right click, new, and yeah, so same thing over here. We're now in position 1. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and override this stroke value down here. We have override, and you end up with this little section over here. And these are kind of the other things we could talk about, but right. You could change the relationship specifically. The patterning you could also change if you have some kind of patterns arrays, and also the component stuff like grounding, which we mentioned over here. We're only going to stick with relationship today, but what you want to do, you want to click the suppression. So we're going to actually suppress this, right? And we're going to enable a new constraint value, right? So suppressed, enable the value. Instead of 2.5, I'm going to go even further for the full stroke. I'm going to go for a full 7 inches, right? It's going to come all the way down there. I'm going to go ahead and rename this to super stroke. Yep, okay. And then once again, you'll notice like with the other guys here, that particular constraint is going to be updated to be overridden with whatever value I put in there. So full stroke at 5 inches, compression at 0, adjustable at suppressed, and super stroke at 7. Okay. And just a little note about the adjustable fork one. If you want a separate positional rep for your assembly that's free to move like this, you would just have to go over here, enable, override, and then when you go into suppression, right, we want to click suppress because we're just going to suppress this constraint altogether as opposed to renaming it to a new value, right? So yeah, that's part of that.
It's pretty straightforward.
Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff.
Or representing different positions.
It's phenomenal.
It's as if they named it, as if they wanted it to be.
So very good stuff. And so again, very similar. There is a workflow to the IDWs that I think will be very interesting to everyone. And so once again, I'm going to go ahead and save. And so again, once again, I did save this file before I started this document. So that's why we're not seeing that same error again. I'm going to go ahead and place this just like this. I do have a view rep here. I'm going to keep it at view 1 for now, master. Again, you can choose the position, but we're not going to do that right now. But go ahead and click OK. We're having a good time. There's a bunch of cool buttons up here, but today we're talking about overlay. And as you might imagine, overlay lets us produce an overlay over our drawings over here. And so it's going to be for the same model, for the same view model that we just chose. And instead of the master position, we're going to go ahead and choose, I don't know, the super stroke. Sounds pretty cool. We do want to choose the view representation. I'm going to keep it view 1 for now. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make sure under style as well that I'm going to uncheck shaded here because I want that dotted line effect, which looks real nice. Okay. Just like that. And again, this is the super stroke where you see the kind of shadow figure at the bottom, about 7 inches down there. Okay, and we can do the same thing with, I'm going to do it one more time, just really quickly. Yeah, let's go ahead and place a base view right there. Over here, we're chilling. Okay. Okay.
And you can overlay as many of these on top of each other as you want, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, you could do multiples over a single one. I just wanted to demonstrate the 2 different dimensions here. So I chose master, and I'm going to also go to the compression stroke right here, uncheck the shaded. And now we have a different one with shaded. What's really nice about these overlays too is that you can actually dimension these and get a bit more information out of them. So under annotate, you can dimension off of these dotted figures here. So we can actually see the travel from uncompressed right here, which is about 4.5 inches, which is an information that we had in our constraints, right? That's really interesting. Same thing over here. From the top here, from uncompressed to the top, we know this should be about 2.5, okay? So good stuff over there. One last thing I do want to talk about is associativity. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place one more base view over here. I can go ahead and choose the home view, no big deal. And right over here, yeah, associativity is this little link right here. If you notice, there's a little checkbox right here. Associativity, essentially what it is, it's kind of like a live update from the model space to the drawing space. And so if you make an update in model space, this view rep, if this box is checked, will update to match that particular drawing view.
Yep.
And so
this is a question that when I was on the Lifeline team,
yeah,
and I'm sure Adam, who is currently on the Lifeline team, gets weekly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, I updated my model, but it didn't update my drawing. Why?
That's a classic, yeah.
That is the classic.
Mhm.
And the answer 90% of the time, unless it's like some freak incident, is did you check the box
Correct.
with the associative in it?
And so it is good to note that I have my view over here, which is, I chose view intentionally, right? If I actually go to master, you'll notice that it gets grayed out, right? And so you'll remember that our default master view rep is locked, and you can't make changes to locked views essentially, right? So that's why if you don't see that box, maybe you're in master and you want to choose the appropriate view representation here. I'm going to check it right here, go back to model space, test suspension. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visibility of this part right here. And, you know, it looks kind of cool. I just wanted to kind of show off what it looks like on the other end, you know, like cool, whatever. And now I'm over here, and you'll see that this updates live. Beautiful, right?
And the other two did not.
Yeah.
Why?
Let's check
Because
the box.
the box wasn't checked.
There we go, right? Exactly. So that's again, a bit of extra utility, and it saves you time from just adjusting the individual model files over here, as opposed to opening them up and turning off visibility as you'd like here. Again, saving you time, helping you better communicate your ideas. Okay.
And that works everywhere, right? It's not just in the positional reps or whatever. It's for any drawing view, period. If
Correct.
you want it to be reflective of the model at all times, make sure you have that associativity turned on. Sometimes you don't want it turned on, right? Sometimes you want to go into your model and you want to edit a couple of things just to see what it might look like. But you don't want it to update your drawings. Well, then just uncheck the box.
There you go. Okay, and so the last thing I do want to talk about is levels of detail. So the last of the three different view representations that we're talking about today, right? The main purpose of levels of detail, maybe you're working with large assemblies, but levels of details kind of help you control memory usage and performance, right? So specifically, levels of details tied to suppression states and being able to unload or load files appropriately. Okay, we'll get to this example in a little bit, but I have another assembly going right here.
As if you knew you were going to open these already?
Wow. Just a real professional
there you go.
we got going on here. So this is the suspension assembly, also available in the sample files if you're interested. And so this one's really nice. I wanted to finish up with this one just because there's a lot of work that's been done on this particular file already. Okay, so there's already some like some view reps available. There's already some positional reps available. There's also some levels of detail available. Okay, I'll start with levels of detail for now, just because I know we're all really curious about that. Okay, I know you're also really curious about these two numbers down here, right? So you have a 123 and you have a 173 in the corner down there. The number on the left represents the number of unique files open in your assembly right now, and the number on the right represents the number of instances of those unique files in your assembly. So that number will typically be larger than the other one.
Yeah, it'll always, I think.
Yeah,
I think
should be.
At best it should be equal, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, like you said, the number on the left is the number of unique instances of files. So if you've got multiple instances of the same file, it's not going to count all, like say all 4 of those bolts. It'll only count 1. On the right-hand side, it's number of parts pretty much period that are open. So yeah, just something to note. So
yeah. And so as a live demonstration of that, right, levels of detail by default usually comes with these 4 already. So like master, all components suppressed, all parts suppressed, all content center parts suppressed, right? So you can see this is a relatively complex assembly, right, with these linkages and sub-assemblies. We also notice some content center parts, like some of these nuts and bolts and stuff over here. If I wanted to save some time, right, and save some like computing power, I could go ahead and choose one of these different levels of detail, essentially, right? So like all content center suppressed, for example, if I click on this, you notice some of my nuts and bolts all disappear right here, right? And then these numbers get updated accordingly. So 107 and 167 as well, right? This is a relatively small assembly, but you can imagine when you're working on like a full-size car or something like that, it's kind of a pain to be loading every bit of it if you just need to work on a particular section.
Yep. Just shout out to those people who call in and say that their assembly takes 30 minutes to open.
Yeah, I believe it.
Or work in an assembly that's, you know, upwards of 15, 20, 30,000 unique parts sometimes.
Yeah.
One way to get those things to act or to behave, I guess, in a better manner is to use some of these. Yes, there you go. Is to use some of these levels of detail. And I think, Adam, you're going to go over some of the file opening capabilities too.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. And so I guess just one point I want to make here. I'll show you guys how to make a level of detail as well. The real power of these representations, I think, really come when you start combining them all together, right? So you have a bunch of different configurations just by combining these three settings all together. And so, like, I want a level of detail, for example, with no wheels and no content center. Oh, let's start with no wheels for now. So with no wheels, right? So I could actually go ahead and suppress these guys over here. Oops. Yeah, and then let's go ahead and suppress these guys. There we go. Okay, and then I want a particular view of the A-arms over here, for example. I don't care about the content center parts because my computer's only an i3 from 2008. Then we could save another view rep over here. We could save a view rep. And let's call this the A-arm perspective, right? Perspective. All right, and we could lock that down as well. Go ahead and lock that. And you know what? I also want this right assembly to also be bumped. So I could bump it like that. I want it to look like this specifically. And go back in here. Let me update this guy. And then, yeah, so there we go. So these are, again, all different states we could save this in. So I'm going to go ahead and file, save as, again, extra copy. So I'm going to go ahead and AVA3 suspension. Go ahead and save that. And so when I close this out, I could actually go ahead and open. I'm looking for my suspension right here, looking for AVA3. You'll notice down here you have an options section, and this will give you some options to open it. And what do you know? There are our old friends, our design view reps and stuff. So you can actually choose the different positional reps to open it from and the different levels of detail to also open it from. So you can imagine if you have a large part assembly, you could actually open it with all parts suppressed, and you could slowly populate in the parts that you actually want to see. So all content center suppressed will start there, and then design right here. So A-arm perspective right here. Again, it's all three things kind of combining together so that we kind of get a nice unique perspective. So I don't have to fiddle with that anymore. I don't have to actually go in and select all of these guys. I can just start from the very beginning at that opening options section over there. This is just a detail, right? So you see the numbers one more time. On the left side is with content centers active. On the right side is without content center active. Good stuff. Notice the numbers. Very good stuff. It's just a quick summary, right? We have a nice little table we got here. Good Microsoft products make great tables, right? So we have types of representation on the left. View reps, once again, great for different save states of different views, right? So we're talking about visibility, you're talking about enableability, talking about material overrides, you're talking about partsless filters, drawing views, all that good stuff, right? Again.
And then the other thing too, the other really big thing, I don't know if you covered it, is like the browser filtering too with view representations. Say, for example, you've got a subassembly that you really want to focus on inside one of the particular view reps. You can actually expand the folder in that view representation and then lock it down. And then when you come back to it, it expands that folder again, even if it was like collapsed, which is like a huge deal because if you've got, say, 500 things in your browser,
it goes a while, yeah.
So finding stuff sucks. Right. So you want to be able to save a particular instance of your browser, and I'm like, hey, I want to expand this, and I want to jump straight to that particular component, and VREPs will help you do that. Yeah.
So again, all about saving time and having these nice, reliable kind of default states to go back onto, fallback states to fall back onto, right? So same thing with positional reps, right? Positional reps help you control positions, and you could access different positional configurations from the same file without necessarily changing the constraint each time. You just have this different state, a separate branch that's distinct from the original that overrides it and lets you see different things and lets you dimension them and annotate them and bring it into the drawing views, right? Also really great if you have the flexible, if you just suppress the, if you just leave it as a flexible assembly altogether, let you see range of motion and all that jazz. But again, positional reps, levels of detail, one more time, all about suppressing things, all about improving performance and managing memory. Okay. Yeah. So one more time, yeah, all these view reps, very powerful stuff, right? They're not necessarily about modeling or adding features to your models, but they do help you navigate and use your assemblies a lot more effectively, a lot more easily, and being able to communicate these ideas through drawings or through other colleagues a lot more easily. That said, anything else to add, Nigel?
Yeah, just real quick before we end, there's a couple of other things that I want to add.
Mm-hmm.
You can jump to the Q&A slide, no worries. Just a couple of things to mention here as well. Some of those view representations also carry over to 3-dimensional PDFs, and that's a really big deal. So for those of you who don't know, Inventor in I think the 2018 release, 2018 release, which came out last year, included this thing called MBD, which is model-based definition. Some people like to call it, GD&T inside of Inventor. So for those of you who know about geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, you can do annotations directly inside of the part and assembly environment. So if you want to add things like dimensions, maybe you want to add some whole notes, maybe you want to add other annotations, so on and so forth, you can do so in your part and assembly environment, and you can tie those to view representations as well. So what I like to do is I like to create a new view representation called annotations on the front view, and all of my annotations on the front view are only visible there, and then I suppress those in any views that I carry over to the drawing if I don't want them to show up. So we're gonna do a full AVA on GD&T. Adam's got something on his screen right now, and I'll have him show that real quick. As you can see, you can do dimensioning and tolerancing, and you can add annotations, so on and so forth. You can have these particular things suppressed or enabled in particular design view representations. So really important just to note, this is gonna take a session in itself to cover. So just wanted to let you know that this is something I use view reps all the time for. This is why they added view reps to part files. You're thinking, it's like, why would they add view reps to part files? Like, there's only one part to enable or disable. And this is one of the really big reasons why that's there. So if you want to know more about this,
tune in next time.
Yeah, tune in or just ask us a question. I'm sure I can answer a couple of things for you. So with that, let's just jump straight into questions. We got a lot. I'll make sure we get them covered. Which representations are created by default in Inventor? So we went over, in regards to view reps, there's master, and then there's default. Those are created. Are any positional representations automatically created, Adam?
I don't believe so. Yeah, I think it's the only one that doesn't have any defaults that come through specifically.
Right. And then defaults on the level of details. Yeah. There's a couple of those.
So there's the master level of detail. There's all parts suppressed, all parts all content center parts, and there's that third one as well.
All components suppressed, I think is the third one.
Right. We could check it out right now. Yeah, so these first three here, so all components suppressed, all parts suppressed, and then all content center suppressed, along with the master or the default levels of detail.
They just show up when you create an assembly. So if you're wondering, like, why do I have these? I never generated them, and I have no content center parts in my assembly. Well, Inventor just puts them there for you. And it understands, like, hey, it understands the logic for specifically content center parts suppressed. Anything that's from the content center, I'm going to suppress. So it's really cool. Cool logic. So let's see here. Are these appearance overrides in the view representations reflected onto the actual part files if you do it in the assembly file?
No, I don't believe so. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that these hard overrides that he made in regards to color don't carry down to the part file themselves. They're only reflective on the assembly file. But you will see, that part was modeled as that really awesome brown color. I think it's like orange pale is actually the color that they used. That's still going to exist on the part file because that's how it was originally modeled. But if you do any overrides and create view reps in an assembly environment, no, those do not propagate downwards.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive.
Yeah. So, well, that's not the one I wanted. My bad. So we could actually open up one of these pieces right here.
Just double click it. It should open.
Yeah. This guy right here. Oh,
right there.
Beautiful.
Cool. So while he's doing that, and we'll answer a couple more questions.
Right. So as you can see, the ViewMaster here doesn't include the view reps like they do in the assembly part specifically, and we don't have the pink view rep essentially under the ViewMaster here. So
Exactly.
I do not carry down. Thank you.
Definitely thank you all for being part of our AVA community, part of our learning community, right? If it wasn't for the viewers every day watching these, we wouldn't be creating them, right?
Yeah.
So again, Adam, thanks for joining me today. Definitely had a
me.
great time with you going over some of these viewer presentations. And thank you all for being a part of AVA. We'll talk to you next week.